Good morning, friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. I call this segment Looky What I Made. Well, before we get into that though, this is something else I made. I guess I could say it fits the segment. Here's the Thomas mandolin. It's Monday, August 17th, and it's just been drying since Friday. We're going to let it dry one more day so that the finish can shrink up. You can see it's starting to look pretty good. But the finish is going to shrink a lot more, so I'm just going to give it another day for the finish to shrink. Then I'm going to level all the finish. We'll spray on another half dozen coats of lacquer, and we'll let it set for another week. Then we'll do it again. So we're going to have to do a lot of sanding on this thing. And then after we sand it off and level it the second time, well, when we put the third coats on there, then we'll let it set for about a month and we'll buffer out. So we're getting close to the end, but it's still, by the calendar, it's still a long ways off. But in terms of work, it's not too bad. But that's not why I call this segment Looky What I Made. I'm going to bring the camera down and show you close to the table here what we're talking about. I believe you can see pretty much everything within frame here. These are just the tools that I'll need to assemble what I'm going to show you. On this tray, I have divided it into two separate parts. These are the parts up here at this end of the tray that I purchased and used as is. In other words, there's a pair of bearings here, and I've got a few screws and a little keeper. I forget what you call that now. I think it's a seat clamp keeper. I don't know what you call those. Words always escape you when the camera turns on. These are the parts that I bought, but then I had to machine. I had to cut these screws down shorter. These are some 3/8 cap-in screws here, and a couple of washers that I had to drill out and make the hole larger. Then we've got all these other machine parts. We can see this piece here, and it's got a tongue and groove on the inside, if you can see that. And so I machined this in my other workshop. I have a metal shop here on the farm. There's a part here that caps onto the top of that. Then we've got the part that slides down inside of it has the female side of that slot, and it will slide in here like so. It will slide in there like so. And then there's a cap for that. And then there's another deal here that I made, and you can see there's a groove in the edge of that. There's just kind of like another pulley or whatever you want to call it. Then I have a screw, a hand screw here, and this used to be a 3/8" bolt that I turned down here on this end, and there's where the keeper goes in that little slot, and then there's a little tiny end there on it also. So let's put all this together and see what we made. Okay, it would be good to get them in the right order. That would be the best thing to do. So I'm going to put these together first. These two little pieces. Put the cap back on it here, put these screws in. Okay, before I can put this piece in here, I have to screw it. It's threaded, and I have to thread it into this piece. So there you go. Now that I have it threaded into that piece, now I can poke it through here and put the keeper on. Okay, the keeper's on. Now I can slide these two pieces together. Put the screws in here. Okay, getting it lined up good and straight, and then I'll torque those down a little bit. Okay, so now we have a piece that slides up and down in that slot here with this screw. Okay, so what's that about? Well, let's put on this piece. And that goes on with this big bolt here. And we'll torque that down just a little bit, not real tight. Then we'll put on these two. There's a washer that goes behind these two bearings. I think I called them pulleys earlier, but they're bearings. I don't know. Can't find the right words when I need them. Put this on here. And we'll tighten both of these down. Just a little bit of a torque there. And these bearings spin freely. And this one here spins on the shaft. It's not really a bearing, but it kind of acts like one. Okay, so what is this contraption? Well, most of you, well, a lot of you that know about musical instruments probably have already recognized it. It is a fret wire bender. Now, why did I wait 30 years to make one of these? Well, I had a ton of fret wire that was already pre-bent. It came in a big roll. And I never really needed to bend any fret wire because it all just matched the curvature of the neck. You just drove it down in there, no problem. Well, now fret wire comes straight like this. And it's a little bit like bending copper tubing. When you try to bend this stuff, it likes to kink or it doesn't bend smoothly. And so I thought, what the heck, just because I can make one of these things, I'll make one. And so basically, now, I will tell you, I was going to put a crank on this, you know, like just actually span this nut here and put a little hand crank on it to crank the wire through. But after I made this, I ran the wire through and I found I don't really need a hand crank. Just be more to make and really don't need it. So I'm tightening this down here till it just barely goes through like this. So I've got my fret wire in there, as you can see. And then what I do is I just push it through like this, and you can maybe see it's already starting to curve it a little bit. I don't have it very tight, but you can just kind of run it through like so. Tighten it up a little bit if you want, or you can tighten it up more. I just tighten it up a very little bit there. Run it through again like this, and it bends it more. Then you just tighten it up maybe a half a turn there. Run it through again, and you can start to see that it's really bending it pretty fast. Tighten it up a little bit more, run it through, and maybe you can see how it's bending there. I got the camera zoomed in a little bit too much, but you can see it's starting to bend it in a pretty good arc. Tighten it down a little bit more, run it through, and now I pulled it all the way through, which was somewhat of a mistake, but it's not hard to put it back through once you got it bent. So you just stick it back in there, run it through, and just run it up to where it just about comes out. Tighten it down a little bit more, run it through, and you can see I've almost got a perfect circle there now. So you can just kind of measure across your circle and decide what your diameter is that you want to bend it to. You know, I made one of these out of wood for the Thomas mandolin. He wanted a radiused fretboard on his mandolin, so I just made one of these as a prototype out of wood and ran it through there, and it worked fine. So I thought, what the heck, I've got a machine shop, I'll just build my own. That's all there is, folks. Hope you enjoyed this little segment of Looky What I Made, fret bender. Thanks for watching.